My presentation is titled Ensuring Ethical Integrity Throughout All Stages of Scientific Writing. This is the outline of the presentation. Let's start with these three quotations. The first one is that ethical integrity is essential for building trust and maintaining a good reputation within the scientific community. Scientific integrity refers to adherence to ethical principles and standards in scientific research, ensuring the reliability and validity of research findings. And lastly, researchers should commit to ethical practices in all aspects of their work, ranging from data collection up to the final stage publication. Now, I want us to take this warm-up quiz. We'll discuss it later, while we go on, maybe towards the end. We want to talk about scientific integrity. Integrity is around trust, actually. And we know that, whether we like it or not, scientific writing is a complex task, I must say. For some, it may be very complex. For some, it's a piece of cake. But it's not an easy task. And the more reason why we need to do all we can, and all the form of integrity we need to build up so that we can do the right thing. So integrity is about doing the right thing. And this is the cornerstone of research. Scientific integrity refers to how we adhere to ethical principles and standards in scientific research. Various disciplines have their code of ethics, their practices, and all of that, but it all centers around integrity. Now, the importance of scientific integrity, whatever discipline you find yourself, one of it is that it ensures reliability and validity of research findings. Now, whatever research that we're carrying out, you need to know that whatever you did, the world is looking up to you, whether you think they are seeing you or they are not seeing you. So whatever findings that you have put into the public domain must be seen to be reliable enough, must be consistent, must be seen to be valid enough. So if somebody sees your work in Japan and somebody else sees your work in London, some other person sees it in Lagos, there should be some form of consistency. So we shouldn't be seeing something differently from a work published by Professor A, the same Professor A's work in Japan. We are seeing something differently from the one we are seeing in Sokoto. Meanwhile, it's still the same finding. Now, everything, like I said earlier, builds around public trust in science and every other scientific inquiry. It also promotes responsible and ethical research practices. We have responsibilities in our hand as researchers, as scientists. So whatever we have written, whatever we have also published should be reproducible. So it should be publishable and also reproducible by others. There was a story of a scientist many years ago who won an award, I think in the medical field. And I think like 20 or 30 years later, somebody wanted to replicate the same research. Your methodology is a critical part of your work when you do empirical related researches. And they found out some inconsistencies. So they had to go search the communities he claimed he carried out research on. And they found out that he never got the consent of his so-called participants. It was something that had to do with chemotherapy. And in the course of it, because many of the women he carried out this research around the environment, many of them died in the process. So that he didn't get their consent, and then he exposed them to risks and eventually harm, which caused the death of many of them. 30 years down the line, they withdrew not only his license, they also withdrew that certificate. We wouldn't want such a thing to happen to any one of us. So whatever we are doing should be built on trust. It should be able to cut across the entire universe, and people should be able to reproduce whatever we have done with ease. And then it should foster a culture of innovation and critical thinking. So research work should stimulate critical thinking. Now, these are the core principles surrounding scientific integrity. Like we have talked about before, honesty. Whatever you have presented as a researcher must be accurate reporting of your data that you have collected and the methods that you have used. And then there must be some form of transparent disclosure of conflicts of interest wherever it is applicable. For instance, I'm a staff of the University of Port Harcourt, and then there's a research I'm conducting, and I know that there was some form of conflict of interest. You cannot be a judge in your own game, as they say it. So if I know that whatever I'm trying to do should not in any way influence the research, if I know it's going to influence it, I should declare so, or I withdraw from that research. Integrity is the watchword here. So we should avoid in every form fabrication, falsification, and plagiarism. These are the three key forms of scientific misconduct: fabrication, falsification, and plagiarism. And the mother of it all is plagiarism, where we use other people's ideas, their thoughts, without giving them credence. In fact, somebody once asked me in a class I was teaching research methods and said, why should it be plagiarism if he got the person's idea, but he put it in his own words? And I said, whether you got his ideas and put it in your own words, plagiarism is defined as using other people's ideas, words, thoughts. So whether it is their idea, it is their thoughts, whether you paraphrase it or not, you got the idea from them. So you should still cite them. That's when it's no longer plagiarism. Then accuracy, your data collection, your data analysis, and all of that must be as rigorous as possible. That's why methodology is a critical part of scientific research. And then we must give attention to detail. And again, there must be effective use of our resources and our time. There's a research we're about to start, and we're supposed to start on the 1st of January. And we are seeing that January ending, we know that the first week in January will not be easy to get people to interact with. So how do we work around second week, third week, and last week of January so that our report will be ready? So we need more hands. And we are trying to we're having a meeting after this meeting now to deliberate on how we're going to work on that. So there must be effective use of your resources. You must manage your resources. It could be financial resources, it could be human resources, it could be material resources and time, so that you can get the best out into the public. And then you must be objective. There must be impartiality in your interpretation of your results and also your analysis. It doesn't matter whether you are interpreting data or you are trying to analyze qualitative information. There must be no form of partiality. Avoid bias as much as possible. Now, I won't talk much about this, but I just want to make reference to the Singapore Statement, Search Integrity. You can access it from www.singaporestatement.org. And the emphasis here is on the principles on research integrity, which borders around honesty, accountability, professional courtesy and fairness, and then good stewardship. So we can access this and see there are 14 of those items in this entire statement, which borders around how responsible researchers should be when conducting research. Why ethical integrity matters. Ethical integrity matters in the form of impacting on scientific credibility. It's essential because it builds trust and it maintains our reputation. Like I gave the instance of the man or the person, the researcher that carried out the research work, but actually did not declare certain things. It did not provide consent, which is a critical part of human research. If you are conducting any research that will have to do with humans, you have to get their consent. They have the right to withdraw whenever they want to. They have the right to know what they should know. Now, ethical practices ensure that research results can be reproduced by others, strengthening the credibility of the findings. Just like I said, it's still related to that research. Reproducibility is one key thing in research. Whatever you have done, people should be able to look at the methodology. In fact, where your work stops is the beginning point for another person's research. Unethical behavior can damage the public's perception of science and lead to mistrust. Just like that research, again, I keep making reference to it. People will begin to wonder, oh, is this how these guys do their research and things like that? So we wouldn't want to hear such a thing. Again, ethical integrity is important in the balance of legal and professional consequences, because violations of guidelines can lead to legal consequences, which may include fines, lawsuits, and loss of licenses. Researchers, again, who engage in such practices may face several sanctions. If you listen to the news, I think about a month ago, there was somebody who was found producing drugs in a building, an uncompleted building, I think somewhere in the West. And I hear it's supposed to be a practicing person. It's not like it's an illiterate, somebody who is well learned. So they had to withdraw his license and definitely will be prosecuted. In the academics, we have seen situations where people on account of plagiarism have been dismissed. Students on account of plagiarism have been expelled also. So there are consequences. I was discussing with somebody yesterday. Recently, the Federal House of Representatives is requesting universities, I'm sure other institutions too, to compile a list of staff that have absconded. There were many staff that were sent abroad for higher studies and they refused to come back. And somebody was asking me, but they didn't pay salary now, so the person left. And then when the person left, he now applied for study leave and they did not grant it. He now said, since they didn't grant it, let me apply for study leave without pay. I said he was not even qualified to apply for study leave without pay because he was not a staff. He had not been confirmed yet. He absconded. So by right, he should be sacked. Technically, he should have been sacked. So this same thing applies to scientific research. So when we should do the right thing, we should learn to do it. One charge I want to give to us all is to try to read and study guidelines. We should read and study policies so that we'll be properly guided. Now, ethical guidelines and regulations. There are several guidelines, code of ethics, a code of conduct, and organizations that build around ethical integrity in our various endeavors. Now, we have the IRBs, the Institutional Review Boards, which oversee research involving human subjects, which tends to protect their rights and also their welfare. Like in every university, in every tertiary institution, we have the Institutional Review Boards. So we want to apply for TED Fund research grants. Your proposals go through such boards. So they want to look out for ethical related issues so they can guide against it. We also have animal care and use committees. Unfortunately, this doesn't seem to work very well in our country, but then they are there. Animal rights, to ensure the ethical treatment of animals in research. I was in a conference in Ghana some years ago, and my colleague was a vet, was presenting her work, and she killed 114 rats. In fact, everybody shouted that was not fair. You could have gotten the same findings with 50 rats, with 30 rats. Do everything humanly possible to reduce pain, even in animals, as much as possible. So every discipline has protocols which we must abide by. Now, Publication Ethics Committee also exists, and then we have Professional Code of Conduct where they manage and help to guide our code of conduct regarding our research. Now, let's look at ethical considerations in data collection. In the area of research design and methodology, the ethical implications of research design. First, informed consent. If we are carrying out researches that will have to do with human subjects, there must be informed consent. So participants must, not just should, they must be fully informed.
You mentioned that participants should be fully informed about the research potential risk, about the research, the risk. Participants, especially those of us to interview respondents on the field, you don't have to deceive them that after this interview, this is what you get. If they are not getting it, they are not getting it. Let them know exactly what the research is from. Let them know the sponsor. Is part of the declaration. Privacy and confidentiality, you must assure them. In the beginning of your questionnaire, for example, to any respondent, you want to tell them that, oh, this research is for academic purpose, and we are not going to expose after the program. Data security, implement measures to safeguard data from unauthorized access and breaches. Most of us, after collecting our data, we share it with somebody for analysis. Those in that corridor must know that the data are not shareable. That is the meaning of data security. Beneficence, maximize benefits and minimize harm to participants. I think he has mentioned that when he was using the example of animal. Justice, distribute the burden and benefits of research fairly. The key word there is that fairness. That is, the burden and benefit of research must be distributed in a manner that it is not lopsided. Ensuring fair and unbiased data collection. How do we do this? Select participants randomly to increase representativeness. Representativeness means that because the more representative the respondents are, or the sample is, the better the results we are going to get at the end of the day. Conceal the treatment or intervention from participants or researchers to reduce bias. Whoever is participating or as researcher, we have to reduce bias. That is, do not pick somebody out of interest. If you are doing random sampling, for example, there must be a list. A lot of us, when we conduct research, we say we do random sampling. When we ask, where is the list? You can't produce the list. Then what we have used is not random sampling. In random sampling, there must be a list. It is within that list that you choose from using different methods that are been highlighted or that is normal to be used. Use control groups to compare experimental and control conditions. This is more relevant in scientific research, especially using animal or using in crop production. There must be a control group. It also happens even in socioeconomic research. Use standard protocol to ensure consistency in data collection. Consistency means that the data you have collected now, if somebody takes that instrument back to that location, he must be able to get exact data that you collected the first time. That is consistency. So your data instrument must be able to ensure that. Train multiple researchers to minimize differences in data interpretation. That is, all of us within the research process must be on the same page. We must understand the same thing. We must read the same meaning to every issue that is being discussed. Check for errors and inconsistencies in the data. This is what we refer to as data cleaning. You collect data on age of farmer, and the farmer you are dealing with are youth. You come back and you are checking your data, you discover that somebody says 99, or somebody else saying 72. Something should tell you that this was wrongly imputed. And if you use such to generate your results, it will give you a wrong perspective. We all know how important data is because it is what we use in planning process. So that is why researchers mentioned that one of our major constraints, one of our major challenges in our policy, why it is failing, is because we don't have good data. So where we have opportunity to clean and check for errors, we will not be misleading the audience after publishing the research. Data collection methods. What are the ethical methods there? Ensure participant anonymity and confidentiality. I think we have spoken to that. Except where it is particularly needed, you need to take their permission and give them that sense of confidentiality. Handle sensitive topics with care and avoid causing distress. You are talking about HIV/AIDS. That is your research. And those you are interviewing are those that are HIV positive. I mean, how on earth can you publish such name or give any trace that can make the person to be known? It is not done. Design clear and unbiased questions to minimize misunderstanding. Those are ethical things. The moment a question is understood by two persons from two different perspectives, that question is not good. So you must refine it in such a manner that when 1,000 people read that same question, they won't have two meanings to it, only one. Obtain informed consent. We have amplified that. Create a safe and comfortable environment for participants. Yes, safe and comfortable environment, especially the interviewing environment. That is why most of the time researchers go to respondents and not respondents coming to researcher, because you'll be at their comfort zone. To the extent that, you know, in research in the beginning, you say that as you are starting this research, you are on your own. That is, you are telling them that it is based on their consent. They have the freedom to say no. Even if they say yes from the beginning, they also have the freedom to say no in the middle and say, no, I don't want to continue. So you must give them all those opportunities. And that is why in the practical sense, you are interviewing somebody who is breastfeeding a baby. And in the course of the interview, the baby is crying in the room. You have to allow her to go and take care of the baby. You hold on until it comes back. That's the comfortable environment we're talking about. Assure participants that their responses will be kept confidential. In experiments, minimize potential harms to participants, obtain informed consent, allow participants to withdraw from the study at any time. I think I just emphasized that. Informed consent and participants' right. Explain the research purpose, the procedure, potential risks in simple terms so that they understand it. Ensure that participation is voluntary and without coercion. Participants should have right to withdraw from the study at any time. In fact, if you must snap picture, you must take their permission. If you must record, you must take their permission so that they know they are on record. Protect participant privacy and confidentiality. Provide participants with information about the study and its finding after completion. Yes, some participants would like to know what is the result of this research which you have come to take my 10 minutes. What is now the result? They are interested and you need to give it to them. Yes, data security and privacy refers to the protection of sensitive information from unauthorized access, use, disclosure, disruption, modification, or destruction. I think he has also given us a guide to the Singapore guideline, which can be of very immense benefit to us. Key aspects of data security and privacy are: protect data from unauthorized disclosure, ensure that data accuracy and completeness, make sure data is accessible when needed. I don't want to give the example that is rolling in my in my head because it's a critical thing. The bottom line of it is that ethics in research process, especially research writing, is very, very important and very key. Data integrity and accuracy refers to quality and reliability. Quality and reliability. In fact, most of our policies, I'll continue to repeat that because it's something that is burning. When you look back to what is the reason for our policy failure, it is because of lack of data on one hand, and because of lack of accurate data. I'm sure some of us must have heard of this story of a Nigerian president and a minister in the same conference outside the country, and both of them were giving two different data. It's like when somebody say, we have 5 million farmers in Nigeria. Another person come on board during his own presentation and say, there are 3 million farmers in Nigeria. What does it show, ladies and gentlemen? You will agree with me that no country will take us serious with such. And that is why we cannot plan adequately for them when we don't have their numbers. Not to talk of a situation where everybody is collecting data on a particular thing. As somebody around the policy, very important thing that I would love to be changed in this country is that a data that is collected by a particular organization, let it be adequate and have integrity, so that we don't have another organization that is giving us exactly such same data. In essence, there must be synchronization. When we are committing investment to data collection, it should be that is particularized. You can imagine how many people have your date of birth in Nigeria. Those are part of data. How many different organizations collecting exactly same data? A word is enough for the wise with respect to that. In ethical use of statistical methods, choose the right statistical test, interpret result correctly, and avoid over-interpreting data. I think this is a whole topic on its own, because in the course of our interpretation, sometimes we over-interpret. Sometimes we interpret incorrectly, and most of the time we use wrong statistical tests. Statistics is so bad that whatever you give in, it will definitely give out some things. And therefore, it is a major issue. And I want us to note all this, that selecting the use of appropriate test method that actually fits what we are doing is very, very key and very important. Avoiding bias in data analysis. Researchers should be mindful of these biases and take steps to minimize their impact. You are working in an organization. Your research is about that organization. But because you love your organization, you now allow that love to come into the interpretation. That is the bias we are talking about. Most of the time we want to defend. Most of the time we don't get away. We don't shield ourselves from our organization. Everything we want to say is what people want to hear. Research is not about that. Research is about what did you find. Then the next thing is to proffer possible reasons why your finding is not in tandem with what we are seeing on the field. Honest and accurate reporting. Then present data clearly and avoid misleading interpretation. In order not to distort the scientific literature and lead to misleading conclusion. You know, the data you present, you are going to conclude within it. So if the data has error, then definitely the result will be erroneous. And at the end of the day, the conclusion and probably the recommendation for action or for policy will also be wrong. Now, here is a very important one. We have submitted our work. Importance of constructive criticism. Give your work to somebody that will criticize it. I will always say one thing. I will just say this and leave here, which is that if you give your work to any publisher and they return it and say it's okay, please don't go back to that publisher. To me, I believe that you are just collecting my money. Even if it is free, it means you are not doing a serious job, because there's no way I will write and you tell me that everything I write is correct. Please, let's take note of that. Addressing reviewers' comment ethically. Consider our comments carefully and make necessary changes to improve the research. Comments that have been posted to you by reviewers, you must be ethical in responding to it, and you must be accurate. Authorship and contributorship. If you respond to the quiz that Professor Adesope posted from the beginning, you see something that borders on authorship. Yes, without reading what he has here, I know that the concern is that some of us, we are in papers that you don't even know what is written there. The Nigerian situation has permitted that, where you don't contribute anything to data collection, to anything from beginning to the end. But because you are searching for promotion, please insert my name. And it's so bad that you won't even go back to such paper and even have an idea of what is inside. It is because we don't have people who criticize us or who challenge you. One would expect that during promotion, somebody will just pick on a particular paper and say, what is the conclusion of this paper? If such thing is being done, I'm not sure we'll continue with the practice of nowadays, where we see ghost authorship or gift authorship. Yes, because it's my friend, he just put his name. If some of us have made some mistake regarding to this in the past, please, it is time for us to reverse it. And you must also have integrity. Don't tell somebody to put your name in a complete paper. I think the best thing is that try to be part of the paper. Just try to be part of the paper in any way. Even in the editing, you are better off to do the editing of the paper. That means you are part of it, rather than to be a complete ghost author. Professor Adesope is here, and I'm going to allow him for 5 minutes to conclude.
So I just talked about being very clear and concise in your writing, and as much as possible, obtaining permission for images. If you cannot get that permission in writing or whatever way, always cite the original owner of that material. Then for journal selection, choose reputable journals. I think that's what the summary of this is all about. And then when you are submitting your manuscript, avoid exaggerating your results. I've had experiences where people find, oh, the relationship between this variable and this variable, there's no significant relationship. And the person feels, but it should have been a significant relationship. And he tries to manipulate it to be significant. It doesn't make any sense. Report it. I did analysis for somebody in public health recently and was telling me about WHO standard, that this one you are saying the thing is medium. The WHO said from 5 and above is, I said, my friend, what you have reported is what you should present. Don't come and tweak it so that it will suit WHO standard. You've been misinforming the public. So adhere to guidelines of journals, and then the peer review process is not where we attack ourselves. I know some persons may be very rash, but you don't have to hit back. So when you get reviewers' comments, respond in the best way you can. If you have any personal thing against whatever a reviewer has said concerning your work, talk to the editor. You don't need to attack the reviewer. Then post-publication ethics. Retraction is possible. If you sense that there's going to be something that will mess your name up, please quickly retract. Retract. Don't feel too big to retract. If you discover there's an issue with your work that is capable of bringing in legal related issues. Then the issue of open science and data sharing. Before you sign a document concerning data, please always understand it. If you don't understand it, take it to those superior colleagues that you know could understand better. So you'll not go and sign something and sign your destiny away. In conclusion, we said the issue of ethical culture in science should be promoted. How do we do this? By promoting honesty, transparency, and accountability amongst researchers. And our institutions have a responsibility, just like we as researchers, we have responsibilities to study, to read and understand guidelines, to read and understand code of conduct, code of ethics, so that we will not goof in any way or in any form. And I thank God for Researchment Academy. A thing like this is encouraged. From time to time, people should be part of organizations like this so you can gain a lot. It doesn't cost anything. Rather, it's going to add value to your lives. Now, there are emerging ethical challenges in scientific research and the issue of AI and big data, machine learning. Some of these things are raising new ethical challenges related to bias. When I was doing my master's in the AI data science course, we were told about something on the internet, which somebody manipulated. And then anytime you click on it, it's supposed to be talking about a black man. But what was documented there, what was imputed, the algorithm was showing a monkey, either a monkey or a chimpanzee or something. So it's possible that the person who imputed that data deliberately did that so that anytime they mention a black man, the monkey or the chimpanzee will appear. So things like that exist. We know it does exist. So, but then it's good for us to know. When I was also taking a course on AI, we were told about face swapping and all. And people were wondering, why do we have to learn such a thing? If you don't learn it and people begin to use it against you, you have to fight against it. So it's good for you to know it. And that's why I went and took a course on AI. I have a certificate on AI, several ones, so that people will not be using things. Many of our students are using AI. Why should I not know how to use AI? So I can teach them how to use them responsibly. You can use AI to write our papers. You can use AI to do so many things. But how do you do it responsibly? Know the softwares that you can use so you not get into trouble. That's the essence behind all of these ethical issues. Now, the call to action. Researchers should commit to ethical practices in all aspects of their work, ranging from data collection up to the last stage of publication and even beyond publication. We have said before that researchers, after they publish, that's the end of it. Why are we not going into policy briefs? Why are we not using social media to extract information so that even the lay person in the community will appreciate what we are doing? That is one thing, maybe another discussion for another day.
Thank you. That's the end of the discussion. You agree with me that this acadopreneur, some people prefer entrepreneur, we go to agripreneur, now we are seeing acadopreneur. Prof, we want to thank you very immensely for taking us through. Gentlemen and ladies, signify if you have question.
When you were speaking about random sampling, you were telling us that in doing random sampling, there must be a list. So I don't get the list. Which list? For example, if we are working on prisoners, which list are we to get for us to do the random sampling?
There are many ways of doing that. Random sampling is not sacrosanct. Well, the list is the sampling frame. You can generate a list in non-conventional means. There's what we call snowballing. You can generate a list. You can ask questions. You can find information. We are talking of prisoners. The prisoners are in one particular place. So there should be a list if it's for that one. But if you are talking about market women, for instance, if there's no list, you can use key persons in the same market to generate the list. That's what we call the key informant or the snowballing technique. This one person will give you a list of 5 persons like that until you generate your list. From that list, you can now draw your sample. So that's one way. There are so many ways to go about it.
It's about negative data. We know that most publishers, they don't publish negative data, and it is not ethical to manipulate our data. And at the same time, effort has been put in place in getting the negative data. In some situations, funding body must have funded the project. In some situations, a postgraduate student will have exerted energy into doing the research. And at the end of the day, they got negative data that could not be published. What can be done in this situation, sir?
Well, when you say could not be published, you know, the publishing landscape is so wide. Many of the assessments could be subjective exercises because we don't have a straitjacket way of assessing all papers. If you check the checklist of some journal assessment format, you realize it's different from some others. So when we talk about negative data, well, I want to say it depends on the nature of the data. If a student has gone through 1 full year to do a research, and at the end of the day, is not able to get that published in one journal, there's definitely should be one other journal that will be able to publish it. Because you cannot just leave the data just like that because Animal Farm. Erwin Blair, who used the name George Orwell, he used that name because he eventually found a publisher who was ready and willing to publish his work in a fable form. You know, the way they published that work was like an Animal Farm, rather than using the real things that he had in mind. He was trying to create an impression about the economic situation in Soviet Union of those times. So, and it came out in Animal Farm. It's about a country. So that's the same thing in publishing. It definitely, if he has to search very well, he will find somebody who will be willing to publish his work. But then he has to collaborate with people who have experiences to do this. So that's my take on that. I think he has to search further.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think I agree with your position with respect to publishing negative data.
It's not really a question. I want to share an experience about the negative data. Negative data I got a result outcome from an experiment lab work. It displayed negative results and it became a controversy, accepting the result. But first, I had to go back to my protocol and ensured even use standards and quality control samples to run. Now, one thing first, my attention was drawn. I first asked the question, we had to go back to review the manufacturer's instruction. It was actually an enzymatic principle based on enzyme kinetic method. Now, he followed a decreasing kinetic. So in that decreasing kinetic, what happened? So as the analyte present in the sample is being consumed, the results, the values kept on dropping. When it gets to 0, automatically using our normal number line, it will start giving a negative result. So how to troubleshoot that? We use the manufacturer's instruction. Now went back, what is the underlying principle of this? So I put it back to them that based on the principle, and the protocol and all outlined, that result presented or obtained happened to be the very good and perfect result, I think it became justifiable and accepted. So it depends on the contents. That's just what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nena, for this beautiful contribution. I have a question, Prof. How can researchers easily get informed consent from subjects involved in gender-sensitive issues?
Well, the issue of informed consent involved in gender-sensitive issues. When I was making my presentation, I talked about using wisdom in many of the things we do. Maybe their husbands may be very difficult. It may be a very difficult thing to get consent between husband and wife. You now bring in wisdom. We have leadership in the system. We have the chiefs, we have individuals. We can collectively do that so that it do not affect just one person. You know, it may just be one person out of the entire lot. So we can do that in a collective way so that we can still get the consent, because it's a protocol that must be fulfilled. But when it is practically impossible, then one case cannot spoil the entire lot. Then you may do without it.
Thank you very much. And that is why research also provide for us to be able to replace a selected respondent if you are not getting the...
Exactly.
Am I correct, Prof?
Yeah, very, very correct. Yes.
Thank you very much, sir.